So I want you to picture a timeline, and it's a short one.
A really short one.
Yeah, we're talking about roughly 26 months, from November 2002 to February 2005.
Right. And usually when you see a biography that short, it's a story of pure tragedy.
Exactly, pure and simple. But the data I've got in front of me today, it tells a completely different story. It's this massive contradiction.
It really is. I mean, you look at the lifespan, a toddler's lifespan, and then you look at the outcome.
The outcomes are just staggering.
We're talking about a financial legacy of nearly $4 million, a permanent change to state laws,
In West Virginia, yeah.
and major infrastructure, a highway, named in his honor.
It reads like the resume of, I don't know, a retired senator, someone who spent 40 years building a foundation. But we're talking about a kid.
A kid just learning to walk.
And that right there, that is the mission for this deep dive. We're not just here to recount the sad story of Benjamin Big Ben Bowen. We're here to unpack the mechanics of legacy.
Exactly. It's a case study in what I call impact density. We've pulled together biographical accounts, some really specific medical literature on his cancer, and of course the fundraising records from St. Jude.
And the goal is to figure out how. How does a family use a personal crisis to force these huge systemic changes?
In fundraising and medical support, the whole system.
So let's get into it. Who was Ben Bowen before he became Big Ben?
Well, Ben was born November 14, 2002 in Huntington, West Virginia. Parents were Tom and Jennifer Bowen. And for the first 16 months, his file is, well, it's unremarkable in the best way.
A totally normal kid.
A typical healthy baby. No red flags at all.
That's the terrifying part of these stories, isn't it? The suddenness. 1 minute you're dealing with, normal baby stuff.
Teething, maybe?
And the next, your entire world just flips upside down.
Precisely. The timeline shifts violently at 16 months. That's when doctors discovered a tumor.
A tumor the size of a golf ball.
In the middle of his brain.
A golf ball. In a 16-month-old. I mean, the scale of that relative to the size of his head.
Oh.
It's huge.
It is. And the diagnosis was specific, and it was grim. Atypical teratoid rhabdoid tumor. ATRT for short.
Okay, let's unpack that. For anyone who isn't in the medical field, what does ATRT actually mean?
It means you're dealing with something incredibly aggressive and very rare. These are fast-growing tumors. This isn't something that develops slowly over years.
It just appeared.
It appeared, and it was an immediate threat to his life. I mean, to give you a sense of the urgency, he was rushed to Cincinnati Children's Hospital for emergency brain surgery. Immediately.
And I'm looking at the treatment log here. It's exhausting just to read it. He was eventually transferred to St. Jude in Memphis, right?
That was in March 2004. But the sheer volume of procedures he went through,
It's
substantial. We're talking 4 brain surgeries, chemotherapy, radiation therapy. This is a heavy load for a full-grown adult.
let alone a toddler.
A toddler who wasn't even 2 years old yet.
And yet, this is where the legend of Big Ben starts to form. You'd think a nickname like that, maybe he was just a big baby.
No, and that's the nuance here. He wasn't physically big, especially not while his body was under assault from the treatments. The nickname came from his demeanor.
His personality.
The sources all highlight his bravery, his smile. He just occupied this big space emotionally for everyone around him.
I love that. It frames him as a personality, not just a victim, a little force of nature. But despite everything, the biology eventually wins out.
Unfortunately, yes. By November 2004, right around his 2nd birthday, the tumor came back.
Yeah.
And at that point, the medical options were they were running out.
No known treatments left.
Nothing.
This brings us to one of the most surprising connections in the whole story. The family decides to take a trip.
A 2-week trip to Disney World to celebrate his 2nd birthday.
Now, on the surface, that sounds like, a Make-A-Wish type of thing, a wonderful but standard story. But the backstory of how this trip happened, it's wild.
It's fascinating. It connects this one family's tragedy in West Virginia to a national tragedy.
Right. So Ben's father, Tom Bowen, he was a firefighter. And it turns out years before, Tom had assisted in the recovery efforts for a victim of the September 11th attacks.
Correct. And this is where you see that cycle of aid.
It comes back around.
The family of that 9/11 victim, they heard what was happening. And they, along with Federal Express, they stepped in. They were the ones who made that Disney trip possible.
That gives me goosebumps. A father does his job, helps a family during 9/11, and years later, when his own son is dying, that exact same network comes back to support him.
It really highlights how interconnected these support systems can be. It wasn't just some random act of kindness.
No.
It was reciprocal. It was born out of shared trauma. Tom's service directly enabled him to give his son that one last joy.
So they have this incredible trip, this moment of happiness. But the Bowens didn't just want a vacation. They wanted to do something bigger.
This is the pivot point. This is where we move from a medical story to a legacy story.
They want to thank St. Jude.
Right. St. Jude doesn't charge families. Not for treatment, not for travel, housing, food. And that all costs money.
A lot of money.
Hmm.
So phase one of the fundraising begins. And it's classic grassroots stuff.
Wristbands.
Awareness bracelets. They sold these Big Ben bracelets for Valentine's Day.
And this wasn't just like a local bake sale kind of thing.
Not at all. What was the final tally on those things?
Over $120,000.
Wow. $120,000.
From selling bracelets, that is an incredible amount of community mobilization.
It is. It just proves how much the story had resonated. But the Bowens realized that retail fundraising, it has a ceiling. To really move the needle, they needed something bigger.
He went from bracelets to real estate.
The house that Ben built.
Exactly. In 2007, they organized a raffle for a house in Putnam County, West Virginia.
Now, I know what you're thinking. A raffle. Simple. Buy a ticket, maybe win a house. But reading the notes, it was not simple at all.
No, and this is such a key takeaway for how these things actually work. You can't just raffle off a house. There are strict gambling and gaming laws. And in this case, their ambition ran right up against the legal code of West Virginia.
So they hit a wall. Most people, especially grieving parents, you'd think they would stop there.
Of course. You'd say, okay, we tried, the law says no.
But they didn't stop. They went to the top. They went to Governor Joe Manchin. And this is where the mechanics of legacy become literal.
Governor Manchin actually had to change West Virginia's state law to make this one specific house raffle legal.
That is just profound. We are talking about a legislative change, driven by the memory of a 2-year-old.
And the consequences of that change were structural. Because the law was changed, St. Jude was able to launch a dedicated West Virginia field office.
So it wasn't just for that one house.
No. That office now organizes state fundraising. That infrastructure exists today because of the push to raffle that house. It opened the door for St. Jude to operate in the state permanently.
It removed the barrier for all future fundraising.
Correct.
And the money from that first house.
That 2007 raffle brought in $808,000.
Incredible. So we went from $120,000 in wristbands to nearly $1 million from one house.
And they kept going. In 2008, a second Dream Home giveaway raised over $1 million.
Yeah.
By 2009, they were planning to expand to 2 locations. It just became this self-sustaining fundraising machine.
It's amazing to see the numbers climb like that, but I want to pause here. Because we're talking about millions of dollars and houses and laws, and it's easy to get swept up in the success of it all. But we have to remember why this money was needed. The source material is very, very graphic about the reality of ATRT.
I agree. We need to ground this. The hard truths of the disease are essential to understanding the urgency. Why do you need to raise $4 million? Because the end of Ben's life was not peaceful, not physiologically.
No, it wasn't. The sources state that in his final months, morphine wasn't even enough.
It was inadequate for the pain. And for a parent or a doctor, that is a terrifying place to be. And the physical transformation was extreme. His body, from the tumor and the fluid, it tripled in size. Tripled in size. I can't even visualize that on a toddler. And there were other symptoms mentioned. Severe physiological distress. It's difficult to hear, but it's the reality. The neuropathic pain, the nerve pain, was so intense that his parents couldn't physically hold him.
That's the part that hits me the hardest. Your child is dying, and the one thing you want to do, the one human instinct,
To comfort them, to hold them.
is the one thing that causes them more agony.
It frames a whole legacy differently, doesn't it?
Yeah.
The millions of dollars aren't for research in some abstract sense.
No.
They are to prevent that specific nightmare. The fundraising is a counterattack against that reality.
Exactly. Ben passed away on February 25, 2005. He was 2 years old. And all of this is a direct response to the brutality of that experience.
And strangely, his career as a civic figure, it really accelerated after he passed.
It did. There were honors given to him both during his life and after. Let's run through some. While he was still alive, he was named St. Jude Patient of the Month in September 2004.
And the Shelby County Sheriff in Tennessee actually declared December 6th, 2004 as Benjamin Bowen Day.
Wow.
But the posthumous honors are where you see the entire state of West Virginia really wrapping its arms around this family.
Yes, Governor Manchin issued a special citation. And later that year, Ben and his family were named one of the 55 good things about West Virginia.
Which is a beautiful sentiment, finding the good in such a tragedy.
But then there are the physical landmarks. You can actually drive on Ben's legacy.
You can. West Virginia Route 193. It's a 4-lane bypass near Huntington. In September 2006, it was officially named the Big Ben Bowen Highway.
And there's such a poignant detail about that highway in the records.
Yes. During Ben's funeral, the funeral cortege, the procession, actually traveled along that specific stretch of road.
On the way to the cemetery. It wasn't named for him yet.
Not yet. But the path he took to his resting place is the same road that now bears his name.
That is just, it's poetic and heartbreaking all at once. And on a local level, there's still the annual Big Ben 5K for kids.
Which keeps the community involved year after year.
Huh.
And we shouldn't overlook the media impact. He was in a TV special called Fighting for Life.
Narrated by Alan Alda.
Correct. I mean, being featured in a national broadcast like that, it just amplifies the story far beyond West Virginia. Plus, there was a 7-part local news series in 2007.
So we have the fundraising, the laws, the highway, the media. What happened to the family after all of this?
They actually moved to the Memphis area. And Tom Bowen, Ben's father, he changed careers completely.
He went to work for St. Jude.
He did. He went to work for St. Jude to raise funds. And later, the sources note he worked on creating the Childhood Cancer Network.
So the mission that started with his son's diagnosis became his entire life's work. They didn't just survive it. They reorganized their lives around fighting it.
It's a total redirection of a family's path. And if you look at the total financial impact, Ben's story has raised almost $4 million for St. Jude.
$4 million from a life that lasted 2 years. It's hard to wrap your head around that.
It proves that the duration of a life has absolutely no correlation to the impact of that life.
That is a powerful thought. You know, when I started reading this file, I thought I was reading a medical case study. But it's really a civics lesson.
It is. It's a lesson in how a community, from neighbors buying wristbands all the way up to a governor changing laws, can mobilize around a single patient of the month.
It shows that public policy isn't always driven by think tanks or lobbyists.
Sometimes it's driven by a community that just refuses to accept that a toddler can't be held by his parents.
So here's the thought I want to leave you with. We look at civic figures, people with highways named after them, as these elder statesmen. But in West Virginia, you have a highway and a law and a fundraising office that all trace their existence back to a toddler who just wanted to be Big Ben.
It challenges us to think about what drives the public good. Sometimes it's not a policy debate. It's just the sheer undeniable reality of one child's bravery. And it shows that legacy isn't something you leave behind. It's something you build actively while you're right in the middle of the crisis.
A huge thank you to everyone listening to this deep dive. It's a heavy one, I know, but an important one.
Absolutely. Thank you for listening.
We'll catch you on the next deep dive. Take care.